more on Toyota's remote start subscription, Apple's CarPlay, and the Log4Shell exploit. This is MacVoices. Today's edition of MacVoices is supported by Truebill. Get control of your subscriptions at truebill.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, this is part 2 in a 3-part MacVoices live discussion. In the first part, we started out with something that I thought would be something of a throwaway topic, and that is Toyota's decision to go subscription on remote start for their vehicles. But it turned into a whole lot more than that. So we continue that discussion, we touch on Apple's CarPlay and how it fits into this, and then start an in-depth discussion on the Log4Shell exploit that has been terrorizing the internet. Let's go back and let the panel do the talking. I want to get the chat room in here. Webb brought up a couple good points. One, he said BMW Apple has the digital key system also, free for the first year, then $88 after that. And yes, Webb, I guess I sound like defending somebody here, but that's an app-based thing, and that has to be maintained and upgraded as situations change. It's not just a push the button and something over there happens. So I feel that's like a little bit different, but maybe that's just me. But he also said, does this in the end make the case for CarPlay? Granted, it won't remote start my car, but it does do the nav and the audio as well, to some of Jim's points.
Well, so, I think that's why car players fought CarPlay. I mean, car manufacturers fought CarPlay for a long time because they wanted to own that spot, and they wanted to sell you a $2,000 nav and a $1,500 audio and all that. And they didn't want CarPlay and Android Auto. It took look how long it took for that to happen. And, and Toyota was one of the ones that was really dragging their feet. And I should mention, by the way, that Toyota is not the only company that has this problem of 3G not being, just going away. It's actually like close to half of the car companies out there are just
older cars.
Yeah. But actually, it's not that old because the 3G didn't even start until the first ones were like 2013, 2014. So it's basically 2013 to 2021 cars that have this problem. And mostly like 2014 to 2017, 2018. So we're not talking about like 15-year-old cars. We're talking about cars that are 3 to 7 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which would effectively have a lot more life in them, which is part of now I'm saddled with this thing that I can't, like you've effectively taken a feature away from me because you gave it to me for 3 years, not one,
Why CarPlay's good.
Yeah. And like to Webb's point about, hi Webb, by the way, about BMW and Apple, like, that ahead of time. Like we know that now. This isn't somebody who already, we're not hearing this from people who bought a BMW 2.5 years ago, who just you have 6 months left of remote start. It'd be a shame if something happened to it, mail from BMW,
So Mark Fuccio, our own Mark Fuccio in our private chat room asks, how many of you use your vehicle's GPS instead of that on iOS?
I do.
So frankly, I don't know if my car, that's terrible, but I don't know if I have a built-in GPS.
I have to.
I don't.
My car,
ha. Brittany and I, ha.
It doesn't have a GPS.
Yeah, my car barely has Bluetooth. I just complained about it. Yeah,
mine doesn't.
If I try to,
mine doesn't have Bluetooth, but it does have a map. But I haven't used it for several years.
Guy, what were you saying?
Yeah, I've got a 2016 Kia Soul Plus, and it had the nav system built into it. And I bought it used, and I have tried it, and it does work. But both CarPlay, Google Maps, and Waze work so much better that beyond that, oh, look at that, it does do that. I never use it. I just go ahead and use either Apple Maps or Waze.
I have to use mine. For the Tesla, if you don't use the map to go where you're going, that's how navigation, the autopilot knows where it's going. So
right. Well, that's
plus Tesla doesn't support CarPlay or Android Auto.
It can't. I mean,
Sure, it could. Ford does.
It could.
No.
yeah, there's too much.
That's a business decision that
No.
Tesla has made.
That would take years and years because they got. I mean, the Tesla system is basically literally operating the entire car. I mean,
anytime you've got something that you have a car that's self-driving,
Mhm.
you have to use the built-in navigation system that comes with that car, or self-drive isn't going to work.
yeah, that's got to be right. So that's why they can't put in. I mean, you could put it. Some people have like mock-ups where you could have like a little window on the screen. That's it.
Yeah.
But
It's
it's silly. There's too much.
That's how a lot of those cars work anyway.
the problem is if you have a self-driving car and you don't understand that the self-driving car needs the built-in navigation system to work, and you just say, "Oh, I'm just going to use Waze," and you plug in Waze, and then you take your hand off the steering wheel, and go, "Okay, take me there." The next
you
thing
go into a river. So,
Yeah.
Ways
Well,
ago.
so didn't Apple just come up with like a whole roadmap or thing that is working with every manufacturer to tie into their systems? Heating, is that what
You know,
it is?
I'm going to strongly disagree with that because, I mean, sure, you can't take the navigation system, Tesla navigation system out and replace it, but most cars don't do that anyway. So yeah, the self-driving is going to, know about from, what it's doing, from its system. But
What else are you getting with CarPlay? Then why?
podcasts,
if you're using CarPlay to tell to
Apple
navigate
Music,
that you want to go.
You could use. I
And
mean,
what happens-
Apple Music on it.
Tell-
Actually, you can use it natively. I think. With an app.
I use my iPhone.
Okay, Guy.
Okay, you have a car with a self-driving capability, and you want to go to grandma's house. So you go into CarPlay, you go into Waze, and you say, "Okay, take me to grandma's house." Well, the car isn't necessarily going to talk to Waze, and it's not necessarily going to talk to Apple Maps, and it's not necessarily going to talk to any third-party navigation system.
Liability. That there's no way a car manufacturer's going to do that and say, "Well, this person got in an accident because they put in Waze and Waze told them to go backwards on a one-way street."
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
So, I mean, this is Warren is exactly right. It's a liability issue for Tesla and for any other company
to rely on a third-party service to drive your car.
but
That's what I'm saying. That's what it comes down
that is
to.
not what that's not what CarPlay and Android Auto do. They are simply interacting with you. So yes, you would not be able to use Waze to put a location and tell Tesla to drive through it through another map app. But that doesn't mean that you can't display a map. Now on a Tesla, why would you? The Tesla's got great maps. I don't think I would ever want to, use some other service, but I might want to use music. I might want to use podcasts. I listen to podcasts on Overcast, and there's definitely, for example, Volvo has CarPlay and they have their own maps, and it comes up in a window. In fact, they've got a fairly, it's not as big as Tesla's screen, but it's bigger than the CarPlay screen. So the CarPlay display shows up in the top half, and then the Volvo logic remains in the bottom part of the screen, and is still visible, for example, for controlling the air conditioning, and or you could even have
it just duplicates what the Tesla's doing now. I mean,
yeah, it duplicates it.
So I mean, the Tesla does the exact same thing. So there's no reason to.
I know plenty of people that have Teslas that wish they could duplicate and have that option.
I mean, you could still, I would say, "Hey, S lady," all the time. I mean, I could put my phone there and do all that, and it comes through my Bluetooth, and I could do, Again, people talked about it's hard to integrate in the way.
Ford has done it. Ford is the new Mustang.
But they
it has CarPlay,
The Mach-E.
and
they came out. Tesla came out, with their Tesla way before, CarPlay was even probably a thing. So they've come up and they, built it around there. Ford did not. Ford knew that this CarPlay could be a thing, and they built their things differently because that's a new car.
Tesla has made a choice not to do that. That's all I'm saying.
So let me jump in here and speak for the chat room. Bob says, my car has built-in sat nav, but I much prefer maps on CarPlay. Webb confesses, I think, sort of, to be honest, I cannot confirm the fee for the BMW for cars built after July 1st, 2020. Webb says he has a Tesla Model S, and he agrees with Guy, which I'm sure. Sorry, Webb.
Wow.
As much as I wish I had CarPlay, does not play with Tesla's OS, and is an OS.
OS, yeah.
Right. Mark
so is
says
Ford Sync and all of these other pre-CarPlay infotainment systems that we had prior to 2015, 2016. But
Right.
I mean, if we're going to stick with just talking about the Tesla, there's a reason why that they haven't integrated with CarPlay and Android Auto, and I don't think it's necessarily because they don't like the way it looks on the screen. I think it has more to do with, as Warren said, liability, so that people don't just let go of the steering wheel after they tell their Google Maps to take them someplace, because there are a lot of people out there that would do exactly that.
Yeah. Nobody ever gets into trouble with their Tesla cars.
Mark in the chat room says my 2013 Ford C-Max Energy had a 1G card. When it stopped working, they swapped out. Yeah, when it stopped working, they swapped out the card for a newer one, and it works today still under a recall, free to me. I can road start it still. Good point. Let's see, where is it? And Mark also says, hate the Ford Sync, especially Sync 2, but there's no surcharge to remote start and lock and unlock it. And then Rich says, CarPlay Maps got me to Woodstock. Okay, well, that's good. That's good. Jeff, you had something a little ways back. I want to make sure I get you and Brittany in.
Yeah. Okay. So this goes back to the whole 3G discussion part that we were having a few minutes ago. So if you have remote start and it uses 3G, 4G, LTE, 5G, whatever that cellular technology is, someone has to pay for that. That's not free to use. So you have to ride on someone's network. So who's paying for that? And is that the primary purpose behind giving you a subscription? Because someone has to pay for it, and of course the car manufacturers don't want it to come out of their pocket, so it comes out of ours.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah.
I'm just asking.
I agree, absolutely. And maybe they bet on the wrong technology, and maybe I don't know. Maybe it should be like other appliances, like home generators or home weather stations, which require a Wi-Fi signal that you have a Wi-Fi to wherever it is you park your car. It might be harder to explain, but it could be explained, and it might be a better overall user experience instead of stuff that you have it and then it disappears and you get pissed and you don't know, do you blame the car company? Oh no, really it's Verizon or AT&T or one of the telecom companies, who you never even thought about when you were buying your vehicle. So I think it was Kelly who said that the biggest problem here was lack of transparency, and guaranteed that the dealership, if they even knew about it, which they probably did, the last thing they were going to do was bring it up unless somebody asked a direct question about it, because it's complex and it's a point of friction, and friction delays sales.
Yeah. Brittany, you had a question you wanted to ask, and then we're going to wrap this topic up.
The question was actually, is this a nice, like their highest end model, or is it a medium, or I don't know anything about Toyota.
I think it's just in general, and the cars that have remote start, I think.
Okay.
And then, many of them do.
Part of the reason I was asking is I'm wondering if it was a higher end one, it might be, and I'm the last person to excuse subscriptions, as much as I do want developers to get paid. I'm an upgrade person. If you go to a really nice hotel, like when I stayed at the Marriott, I sure didn't get internet included in that. But when you go to a medium hotel, you do. And I think it's BMW who charges a subscription to use CarPlay. They don't develop it. Independent app developers and Apple develop it. They don't pay for the cellular. That's going through the phone. It's just an add-on, and they can. Not the internet doesn't cost the other hotels. It does, but they don't charge a separate fee for it. And so I wonder how much is let's test the market, and if it works, we'll keep doing it, because that's what happens in certain other markets, and then that's just how it is.
Yeah, you're right.
One thing I don't miss about the pandemic is not having to pay the prices for food in convention centers.
Even from before.
Well, you know, the idea is that these people have you over a barrel, and they'll charge whatever, whatever they, whatever they can for no justification.
Whole other topic.
But it's kind of the same topic.
Bring in Limburger and liverwurst sandwiches.
Oh,
what's next,
Good
Chuck?
times.
Today's edition of Mac Voices is supported by Truebill. Get control of your subscriptions at truebill.com/MacVoices. Over 80% of people have subscriptions they've forgotten about. Are you one of them? I know I am, and when I find one, I'm angry with myself for not tracking them. Truebill is the new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't want, need, or simply forgot about. On average, people are saving thousands a year with Truebill. If you are suffering from the way too many subscriptions syndrome, there's a way out, and you don't even have to talk to anyone. Let Truebill do the work and set you free. Average users save $720 a year using Truebill. See all your subscriptions in one place, keep the ones you want, and cancel the ones you don't, right from the app. Start canceling your unused subscriptions at truebill.com/MacVoices. Go right now, truebill.com/MacVoices. It could save you thousands a year. truebill.com/MacVoices. Thanks to Truebill for their support of Mac Voices. So let's shift to an actual tech topic. And I had no idea this topic was going to generate this kind of discussion, but it's been a good discussion. But how about let's talk about the Log4Shell iCloud vulnerability that's been getting so much press recently. And Jim, I think we need to turn to you to give us just a little bit of explanation of exactly what this is and why we should be concerned.
Okay, and I'll preface by I'm not a security expert and I don't know Java at all. But the short story is that what's happening with this is it's a recurring theme in security for decades, is that somehow something that a user types gets passed through and executed as code. So there was an example like, for your iCloud logon, instead of your name, you could type in, I guess it's Java code. And so in this case, it would get passed through to this log program, which would then run it as if it was Java code, I guess. I'm not sure. This was a common thing on, you used to see a lot on SQL databases where, you could type like a search in and you could type code in and it would, like modify the database or something. So, in this case, apparently, so Log4Shell is an open source package written in Java that is apparently used in thousands and thousands of, different, mostly on servers. Apparently it's a good logging package and, it's free because it's open source. And so it's been used widely, and somebody apparently recently, open source, that's what it means. Anybody can go make changes. I mean, there's an approval process and whatnot, but that's not perfect and nobody's getting paid for any of this. So somebody made a mistake so that it would pass code through and execute it if it came in. And then this got embedded into thousands of different servers around the world. And then somebody discovered this, and it's like, oh, I can type in this code into like login for iCloud is the one I know, but there's way more, tons of different services that were affected by this. And you could run code on it and like crash the server or potentially, maybe get data out of it. Who knows? Depends on what the code does. So, I think there's a couple of, one is, in general, managing, open source packages is sort of nobody's minding the store. We had the Heartbleed problem a few years ago. Same thing. There was a bug in OpenSSL that was there for over a decade, and nobody noticed it, and turned out to be a very serious problem. In this case, it seems to me like there's also an issue that these days, since this is such a known thing, it seems like again, I'm going to keep harping on iCloud login because it's the one thing I know of, but that's just a fraction of the thing. It seems like the first thing that should happen when a form, login is submitted is it should check, okay, is there something other than letters, numbers, and, like it shouldn't allow curly braces, for example, and things like that. It should just not allow that before it gets anywhere further downstream. And, that would, even if there was a bug further downstream, as there was in this case, it shouldn't have even gotten to that. But people aren't careful, and there's no, reward system up in corporations to, basically be careful about it. And then we wind up with this sort of situation. So, apparently Apple has, pretty rapidly fixed iCloud. From what I've read, that was fixed within 24 hours. But the problem is that this is embedded in so many places that there are probably, a lot of places where people don't even, realize that they have the problem. Like maybe somebody stuck this login code in there, 7 years ago, and then, that person doesn't even work at the company. And, so it may take years for all of the situation. I mean, the big players are going to fix it pretty fast, but it's sort of, and Kelly posted a XKCD. Is that the one where there's the whole castle and
all modern internet infrastructure,
right?
A project a random person in Nebraska has been thanklessly maintaining since 2003.
Right. And I was thinking of mentioning that, but I couldn't think of how to do so in an audio thing. But somebody should post that on the YouTube chat. It's a classic.
I already did.
Yeah, just throw it in too.
Is it on the YouTube also? I see it on our internal chat.
Yeah, I put it.
Oh, there it
the
is.
YouTube chat,
I see it.
Yeah,
the chat's cut off.
It's
so those of you that have the opportunity, you should look at that, because that's XKCD is always great, but that's a really good one. I had a little bit of a personal, I believe, brush with this problem on Friday. I wanted to. I finished a version of Panorama, and I wanted to notarize it, and Apple's notary server wasn't working. So for about an hour, I couldn't get it to upload at all. It would just do weird things. And then when it finally uploaded, it took like 2 hours to do the notarization, where usually it takes like a minute or two. And I got on a Slack developer channel, and there was some other people that, like, there was another guy said he was trying to upload a test flight build and had not had any success for 6 hours. So we don't know if that was,
might have been an AWS issue,
which is a separate thing that has tipped over lately that reminded everybody what all relies on it.
It was an all-day problem on Friday.
Yeah, that was bad.
I don't know for sure, but it was the same time frame. And there was another person on that Slack channel that said that he had worked like a decade ago or maybe longer on iTunes backend stuff and the uploading of music for iTunes, and he said that was all written in Java. So it could be that the App Store stuff is too.
So I guess at the end of the day, other than the usual things that we tell folks about, patch your systems, install the upgrades and updates, especially the security updates, as soon as they come out. Is this something we need to really be overly concerned about?
This is, it is, but there's nothing you can do about it, because the problem is on server end. So you can patch and update and, do whatever you want. That, the problem is on servers at Apple, servers at Microsoft, servers at Cloudflare. So only they can prevent this, and only they can fix it. So, we can just sit here and watch and, possibly be affected by it, but there's nothing you can do other than not use online services, which is pretty much impossible today.
Yeah, I would boil down what Jim said, a little more tightly. That part of the problem is there are these open source libraries that are out there, and open source is great, but this shows one of the downsides is that there's some popular packages that really don't take a lot of changing or updating, and the bad guys are out there. They're looking for vulnerabilities that they can exploit. And the fact is, earlier this year there was another Python library that was widely used that hackers had found a way into. So this is a problem of our modern age, that for all the benefits of open source software, one of the downsides is that if there's a flaw that's developed, these things are propagated everywhere and with varying degrees of attention by the developers and sites that are using them. So even though a patch fix may be quickly available, it's going to take some time to disseminate and perturbate into the broader ecosystem of users out there on the internet. And going back to Chuck's point, unfortunately, this is not something that people can directly do to inoculate themselves from, because it's at the server side. It's the other end. You just really don't know what's going on there.
One thing that really, it's not directly related to this, but really kind of worries me is a huge number of servers now are written in JavaScript using something called Node.js. And Node, that system is extremely modular, and it's designed to make it super, super easy to incorporate other open source packages, and use them. And it basically makes it all automatic. And, so you can say, well, I'm going to use this, third-party thing, and then the system will automatically figure out, oh, well, that relies on these other things. So you may write a program in Node, and that uses, several hundred third-party dependencies that it's based on, they're all open source. So you could theoretically, look at them, but no one does, because it's really practically it's impossible. And they could be changing like constantly, and the system will automatically oh, it's changed, so it'll automatically feed it in. And so it's extremely powerful, and it lets people write powerful systems very quickly, but that also means it could be corrupted quickly. And there's even been a couple of cases where maybe something that somebody built an open source thing, and then they just dropped it and stopped working on it, and maybe relinquished control of the GitHub thing or something and some malicious person came on and purposely put malicious code in that then is automatically incorporated. And I think it's kind of a miracle that this hasn't already caused, some really bad disaster, but it seems just like a really bad disaster that's just waiting to, some morning we're going to wake up and oh, there's this huge thing that we can't dig out of for, 2 weeks or something. And, sort of like maybe a ransomware attack on the entire internet or something.
Right. I can't start my Toyota and the servers are down, and it's going to take at least 3 weeks before I'm able to get a fix.
Yeah.
Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.